I used to believe my house knew me. I believed the walls remembered my laughter, the way I hummed while cooking, the quiet footsteps I made at night so I wouldn't wake my husband. I believed the windows had watched me grow older, 10 years older, standing patiently in the same place, waiting for the same man to come home every evening. This house had seen everything, our first argument, our first apology, the nights he held me when the world was too heavy. That was why it hurt so much when it betrayed me too. That evening started like any other. I was in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, stirring soup that had been his favorite since the first year of our marriage. I remember smiling to myself, thinking maybe tonight he'd notice again. Maybe tonight he'd ask about my day. The clock ticked louder than usual, then the front door opened. I didn't look up immediately. I smiled and said, "You're home late." But something was wrong. There were two sets of footsteps, one familiar, one sharp, confident, unapologetic. I turned slowly. My husband stood there, his expression empty, no warmth, no guilt, no love. And beside him was a woman I had never seen before, yet somehow already hated. She was beautiful in a way that demanded attention, dressed like she belonged anywhere she stood. Her eyes traveled around my home, assessing, judging, claiming. "So this is her?" she asked him casually, as if I weren't standing right there. "Her, not my name, not your wife. Just her, this is my wife." My husband said, his voice cold and distant, "She knows." I didn't, but my heart shattered anyway. I stared at him, waiting, begging silently for him to laugh, to say it was a joke, to look ashamed. Instead, he stepped aside and let the woman walk in further, like he was welcoming her into a future that no longer included me. She smiled at me, not kindly, not awkwardly, triumphantly. "I'll be staying here," she said, "at least until you move out." The words felt unreal, like a dream where you try to scream but no sound comes out. I looked at my husband. "Is this true?" He didn't answer right away. That pause told me everything. "Yes," he said finally. "It's easier this way. Easier. 10 years of marriage reduced to convenience." I felt something break inside my chest, not loudly, not dramatically. Just a quiet crack, like glass splitting under pressure. The woman placed her handbag on the table. "My table, don't worry," she added. "I won't touch your things." I almost laughed. Everything in this house was my thing, including the man she had already taken. That night, she made herself comfortable. She kicked off her heels, walked around barefoot, opened cabinets without asking. My husband followed her with his eyes, attentive in a way he hadn't been with me for years. He didn't look at me once. When bedtime came, he didn't say good night. He simply walked past me, his hand brushing hers as they disappeared down the hallway. I sat alone on the couch, the house unnaturally quiet. This was still my home, but suddenly I felt like a guest who had overstayed her welcome. As the lights went out one by one, I realized something terrifying. The man I loved didn't just bring another woman into my house. He brought her into the space where my heart used to live, and he did it without asking. Morning arrived without mercy. Sunlight crept through the curtains like it had done every day for 10 years, touching the same walls, the same floor, the same furniture, yet nothing felt familiar anymore. I hadn't slept. Every sound of the house settling in the night had felt like a reminder that I no longer belonged in my own life. I walked into the kitchen and froze. She was already there, barefoot, wearing one of his shirts, standing at the counter as if she had been doing this for years. "Oh, good morning," she said brightly, turning to face me. "I hope you don't mind. I couldn't find the sugar at first." She opened the drawer without waiting for my answer. That was when I realized something horrifying. She wasn't uncomfortable. She wasn't nervous or apologetic. She was confident. I nodded slowly and poured myself a glass of water, my hands steady despite the storm inside me. "You found it." "Yes," She smiled. Your kitchen is. It's cozy. You're not ours. My husband walked in moments later, freshly showered, relaxed. He kissed her cheek, a simple gesture, something he hadn't done to me in months. Coffee? She asked him. Yes, love, he replied. Love, the word sliced through me. I sat at the table, the same one where I had celebrated birthdays, holidays, ordinary Tuesdays that once felt special just because he was there. Now I watched them move around each other effortlessly, like they were rehearsing a life I had unknowingly auditioned for and failed. You should start packing soon. My husband said casually, not even looking at me. We'll need the space. As if I were clutter. I'll stay with a friend, I said quietly. She tilted her head, studying me. That's very mature of you. I met her eyes. You'd be surprised what women learn to endure. Her smile faltered for half a second, just enough to confirm that she understood exactly what she was doing. After breakfast, she wandered through the house, touching things, picking up framed photos, glancing at them with faint amusement. Oh, you looked happy here, she said, pointing at a picture from our anniversary. But I guess photos don't tell the whole story. No, I replied calmly. They tell the parts people forget. She placed the frame back down, harder than necessary. The rest of the day felt like an endurance test. I watched her claim my routines, my chair, my mug, my side of the bed. My husband followed her every move, adjusting himself around her needs, attentive in a way that felt almost cruel. That afternoon, I overheard them talking in the living room. She's taking this better than I expected. The mistress said. She always does, he replied. She's adaptable, like something designed to bend until it breaks. I went into the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the closet. Half of it still belonged to me. For now, that was when it hit me. They weren't afraid of me. They thought I was harmless, and that was their mistake. That evening, as I folded my clothes into a suitcase, the mistress leaned against the doorframe. You know, she said softly, this isn't personal. He and we're just more compatible. I looked up at her, finally letting myself smile. You're right, I said. This isn't personal. Her brows furrowed slightly. It's educational, she laughed, shaking her head. You're funny. I zipped my suitcase closed, my heartbeat steady, my thoughts clear for the first time since the door had opened the night before. As I walked past her, I realized something powerful. I wasn't losing my place. I was being released from it. And in that release, something sharp and dangerous was beginning to form. The first night away from the house felt unreal. I stayed in a small guest room at my sister's place, lying on unfamiliar sheets, staring at the ceiling while memories replayed without permission. Every laugh, every promise, every moment I had ignored the cracks because love demanded patience. But grief doesn't stay soft for long. By morning, something else had taken its place, clarity. I stopped asking why he did it. I stopped replaying what I could have done differently. Those questions were traps, and I had wasted enough years inside them. Instead, I asked one question that mattered. What do I do now? I returned to the house that afternoon to collect more of my belongings. They weren't home. The silence felt different this time, less suffocating, more revealing. I moved through the rooms like a stranger with permission, noticing things I had once overlooked. That was when I found it. A phone left carelessly on the kitchen counter. His old phone. He had upgraded months ago, but I remembered transferring his date and myself. Muscle memory guided my hands as I unlocked it. I didn't hesitate. Loyalty had already been murdered in that house. Messages filled the screen, months of them. Promises, lies, plans, and then a name stopped me cold. Her maiden name. The mistress wasn't who she claimed to be. Buried in the conversation were fragments of a past she had erased, arguments, threats, and one message that made my chest tighten. If he ever finds out, everything will fall apart. He, not my husband, someone else, someone she was running from. I searched further, social media, archived emails, forgotten folders. Piece by piece, the puzzle formed a picture that made me sit down. She wasn't bold because she was loved. She was bold because she believed she was safe. She had abandoned a marriage years ago without finalizing the divorce. She had vanished, changed cities, changed stories, changed men. I closed the phone and exhaled slowly. This wasn't revenge yet. This was leverage. That evening, I made a call I hadn't planned to make. The number still worked. He answered on the third ring. There was a pause when I said my name. I think you know who I am. Silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken understanding. Yes, he said carefully, I do. I think we need to talk. We met 2 days later in a quiet cafe. He looked older than his photos, but stronger too, like a man who had survived a storm and learned how to stand afterward. She said you'd never find me, he said after I told him everything. She said many things, I replied. None of them were true. He laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. I always wondered how far she'd run. And now she's standing in my house, I said. Calling herself someone else, he leaned back studying me. You don't look like a woman who wants to cry. I already did, I answered. Now I want closure, he nodded. So do I. That was the moment the plan stopped being mine alone. I didn't want screaming or chaos. I didn't want to beg or explain. I wanted truth delivered calmly, publicly, and without mercy. In the days that followed, I packed the rest of my things with care. I dressed well. I slept deeply. I smiled when my husband called and ignored the sound of panic creeping into his voice. They thought I was leaving quietly. They thought I was disappearing. What they didn't know was this: I wasn't walking away. I was circling back, and when I returned, I wouldn't come alone. I returned to the house 3 days later. Not to beg, not to fight, but to finish what they started. I dressed carefully. Nothing dramatic, nothing loud. Calm colors, steady hands. I wanted them to see a woman who had already survived the worst. The front door opened the same way it always had, but this time I stepped inside without hesitation. They were in the living room. She was curled up on the couch, her legs tucked beneath her, laughing at something on her phone. My husband sat beside her, relaxed, comfortable, like the past 10 years had been neatly erased. You're back early, he said, frowning. I thought you needed more time. I brought someone with me. I replied gently. He stiffened. Who? The door behind me opened. Footsteps followed, slow, certain. She turned first, at the sound of his voice saying her real name. Her face drained of color so fast I thought she might faint. Her lips parted, trembling. No, no, this isn't funny. Then she whispered it. Barely a sound. Husband. The word fell into the room like a dropped glass. My husband stood up abruptly. What the hell is going on? The man stepped forward, his expression unreadable. Hello, he said calmly. It's been a long time. She scrambled to her feet, shaking her head violently. You said you'd never come looking for me. I didn't, he replied. She did. All eyes turned to me. I folded my arms. You moved into my house under a false name. I said, you slept in my bed. I thought it was time the truth moved in too. My husband's face twisted with anger. You planned this? No, I said quietly. You did. I just stopped protecting your lies. She collapsed back onto the couch, tears spilling freely. I left because you were controlling. I was scared. You left because you didn't want consequences, the man said evenly. And because you found someone else to hide behind. My husband looked between them, realization dawning too late. You're married, she sobbed harder. I thought it was over. It never was, he replied. You never finished it. The room filled with silence so heavy it pressed against my chest. But this time it didn't hurt, it healed. My husband turned to me, rage flickering behind his eyes. You humiliated me. I smiled softly. You brought your mistress into my home and asked me to leave. Humiliation was already living here. He opened his mouth to argue. I raised my hand. I'm not here to fight. I said, I'm here to leave. With the truth standing, I picked up my bag already packed. The man turned to me. Thank you, he said, for not letting her rewrite history. I nodded. Some stories deserve an ending. As I walked toward the door, she cried out my name. Please, I didn't mean to hurt you. I paused but didn't turn around. Intent doesn't erase damage, I said. And neither does regret. Outside, the air felt lighter, the world wider. For the first time in years, my steps felt like my own. Behind me, the house echoed with raised voices, broken illusions, and consequences finally catching up. I didn't look back, because revenge didn't give me peace. Truth did, and walking away, with my dignity intact, was the sweetest victory of all. Relieved sparkled.